Welcome back to CannaInsights, the podcast where we dive deep into the latest medical research that's changing how we understand human health. Hello, I'm Dr. Sang Park, Associate Director of Research with the Institute of Cannabis Research at CSU Pueblo. Today we are tackling a topic that is both timely and troubling: Cannabinoid Hyperemesis Syndrome, or CHS. As cannabis legalization sweeps across North America and beyond, we are seeing an unexpected consequence emerge from the shadows. It's a condition that sends people to emergency rooms in droves, causes unbearable suffering, and yet remained largely unknown to the public and even many healthcare providers. Today, we will explore the cutting-edge research behind CHS, hear from a real patient who lived through it, and examine what the science tells us about this paradoxical condition. So grab your headphones, settle in, and let's uncover the hidden cost of heavy cannabis use. Let's start with the basics. And what exactly is Cannabinoid Hyperemesis Syndrome? According to a 2024 patient education article by Dr. Angular, published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, CHS is a gastrointestinal condition directly linked to frequent and long-term cannabis use. The syndrome causes recurrent episodes of severe nausea, violent vomiting, and intense abdominal pain. Now, here's what makes CHC particularly striking. Symptoms typically begin abruptly within just 24 hours of the last cannabis use. And here's the real unusual part. Patients find temporary relief by taking hot showers. It's very strange. We are not talking about a quick rinse here. Some patients bath up to 20 times per day, 20 times, compulsively seeking that hot water to ease their suffering. Think about that for a moment. Imagine being so desperate for relief that you spend most of your day in scalding hot water. That's a reality for people with CHS. So how common is this condition? The numbers are startling. Dr. Angular's 2024 JAMA report estimated that CHS affects approximately 2.75 million people in the United States yearly, based on emergency department surveys. And the trend is accelerating. From 2017 to 2021, emergency department visits for CHS doubled in both the US and Canada. Let me repeat that, doubled in just 4 years. The syndrome predominantly affects males aged 16 to 34 years. The typical risk profile? Heavy cannabis users. We are talking daily or multiple times per day for more than 1 year. To put this in context, the global cannabis market is booming. A 2024 review by Stubbs and McCallum note that worldwide cannabis use in 2020 reached 192 million persons, with North American usage at 12.4%. The cannabis industry itself is expected to surpass $25 billion by 2025. As legalization expands and potency increases, we are likely looking at an epidemic that's only going to grow. How do doctors actually diagnose CHS? It's not as simple as you might think. According to Dr. Angular's 2024 criteria, a formal CHS diagnosis requires 3 key elements. First, 3 or more yearly episodes of symptoms lasting less than 1 week. Second, cannabis use more than 4 days per week for more than 1 year. And third, complete symptom disappearance after cannabis cessation for at least 6 months. The last criterion is crucial. It's essentially proof that cannabis was culprit all along. Episode typically lasts up to 48 hours, though they can extend for several days, and the consequences of repeated vomiting are serious. We are talking about eroded tooth enamel and potential tooth loss, but it gets worse. Complications requiring hospitalization include dehydration, acute kidney injury, and dangerously low blood levels of electrolytes like chloride, potassium, sodium, bicarbonate. In rare, severe cases, patients can experience kidney failure, seizures, heart rhythm abnormalities, and even death. For years, CHS remained a medical mystery. Why did some heavy cannabis users develop this syndrome while others didn't? The answer might lie in our genes. In 2022, Dr. Ethan Russo and his colleagues published groundbreaking research in the journal Cannabis and Cannabinoid Research. This was the largest contemporaneous genomic investigation of CHS to date. And what they found could revolutionize how we understand and identify at-risk individuals. Let me walk you through their study design. The research team distributed an online screening questionnaire that received 585 respondents. From this initial pool, they identified 205 qualified CHS patients and 54 control subjects. Heavy cannabis users who had never experienced CHS symptoms. Ultimately, 28 CHS patients and 12 controls returned test kits and completed genomic testing. Now, I know that sample size might sound small, but remember, they were looking for genetic signals, and what they found was remarkable. Dr. Russo's team identified 5 specific genetic mutations significantly associated with CHS. Let me break down each one with the actual numbers because they are incredibly compelling. First, COMT, the RS4646316 variant. This mutation was found in 57% of CHS patients compared to just 10% of controls. The odds ratio was 12 with a p-value of 0.012. Translation: if you have this variant, you are 12 times more likely to develop CHS. COMT stands for catechol or methyltransferase, an enzyme involved in dopamine metabolism. This suggests that excessive dopaminergic activity could explain the compulsive behaviors we see in CHS, like that compulsive hot bathing. Second, ABCA1, the RS22308006 variant, present in 67% of CHS patients versus 20% of controls. Odds ratio 8.4, p-value 0.012. That's more than 8 times the risk. Third, TRPV1, TRPV1, the RS879207 variant. This one is fascinating, found in 71% of CHS patients compared to 30% of controls. Odds ratio 5.8, p-value 0.015. TRPV1 is the transient receptor potential valinoid 1 receptor. It responds to heat and capsaicin, the compounds that makes chili peppers hot. This directly explains why hot water provides relief and why topical capsaicin cream helps treat CHS. It's a beautiful example of genetics explaining clinical observations. Fourth, DRD2, the RS4648318 variant, present in 60% CHS patients versus 20% of the controls. Odds ratio 6.2, p-value 0.031. DRD2 codes for dopamine receptor D2, further supporting the dopamine hypothesis. And fifth, CYP2C9, the RS1934967 variant, This one is particularly important, found in 46% of CHS patients compared to 10% of controls, odds ratio 7.8, p-value 0.043. Here's where it gets really interesting. When the researchers excluded patients on proton pump inhibitors, drugs like omeprazole that affects drug metabolism, the p-value improved dramatically to 0.0011, and 60% of CHS patients showed this variant. CYP2C9 is a cytochrome P450 enzyme responsible for metabolizing THC and its psychoactive metabolite, 11-hydroxy-THC. If you can't metabolize these compounds efficiently, they accumulate in your system, leading to toxicity. This explains the biphasic effects of cannabis. Anti-emeric at low doses, but pro-emeric at high doses. Your body literally poisoned itself. Dr. Russo's study also provided crucial insights into patient behavior and outcomes. Among the CHS patients studied, 85% were daily or greater than daily cannabis users. Both patients and controls were heavy users. 93% consumed cannabis flower or concentrates, often multiple grams per day of THC predominant material. They weren't casual users. The severity is striking. 78% requires hospitalization and 75% reported withdrawal symptoms. 100% every single CHS patient in the study reported improvement after hot water exposure, and 90% reported improvement after cannabis abstinence. But here's the heartbreaking part. 79% of patients who achieved symptoms relief eventually resumed cannabis use, leading to recurrent symptoms. The pull of cannabis, whether psychological and physical, proved stronger than the memory of suffering. So what happens when someone with CHS showed up to the emergency room in crisis? Let's look at what the research tells us about effective treatments. A 2022 review by Dr. Rosman and colleagues, published in the American Journal of Emergency Medicine, synthesized the evidence from multiple clinical trials. Their work compared different treatment strategies head-to-head. The HAVOC trial, HAVOC trial, that's haloperidol versus ondansetron for cannabinoid hyperemesis, was a randomized, controlled trial comparing intravenous haloperidol at 0.05 to 0.1 milligrams per kilogram versus intravenous ondansetron at 8 milligrams. The results? Haloperidol was superior for reducing abdominal pain, nausea, and vomiting at 2 hours after treatment. Even more practically, discharge time was significantly shorter with haloperidol, 3.1 hours compared to 5.6 hours with ondansetron. Another study looked at droperidol, another antipsychotic medication. Intravenous droperidol at 0.625 milligrams significantly reduced the length of stay, 6.7 hours versus 13.9 hours in the non-droperidol group. The median time to discharge after the final drug was 137 minutes compared to 185 minutes. When you are violently ill and desperate to go home, those 48 minutes matter enormously. What about topical capsaicin cream? Remember, CHS patients find relief from heat, and capsaicin activates those same heat receptors. A systemic review and meta-analysis by Poorman and colleagues in 2021 found that topical capsaicin applied 3 to 4 times daily resulted in a mean time to response of 325 minutes. That's 5.41 hours, and a mean time to discharge of 379 minutes or 6.31 hours. Dr. Angulo's 2024 JAMA article specifically recommends 0.1% topical capsaicin cream applied to the upper abdomen. For supportive care, the 2024 review by Stubbs and McCollum recommends parenteral benzodiazepines as first-line treatments. Lorazepam, specifically at 1 to 2 milligrams intravenously every 4 to 6 hours, is effective and should be prioritized over narcotics. But acute treatment is only half the battle. What about long-term management? Let's be clear. Complete cessation of cannabis use is the most effective long-term treatment, period. According to Dr. Angulo's 2024 report, this is unequivocal. But as we learned from Dr. Russo's genomic study, nearly 80% of patients relapse. For those trying to quit, counseling is essential. And there is a pharmacological support. Tricyclic antidepressants, particularly amitriptyline, are recommended. Stubbs and McCollum's 2024 review noted that amitriptyline has a dose range of 50 to 200 milligrams per day. How effective is it? A comparative study between cyclic vomiting syndromes and CHS found that patients receiving amitriptyline reported significant symptom improvement, 70% improvement in the CHS group and 80% in the CVS group. Those are meaningful outcomes. Dr. Rosban's reviewers noted public health data showing that while 54% of patients achieve 2-week abstinence, 71% relapse within 6 months. This underscores that CHS isn't just a medical problem. It's a behavioral health crisis requiring comprehensive support. Now let's hear from someone who lived through this. In the 2024 review by Stubbs and McCollum, a patient identified as JR shared his powerful first-person narrative. JR described the worst part as the anxiety, knowing that once the vomiting started, he couldn't stop it. It became a self-perpetuating spiral of sickness. Imagine that psychological torture, being trapped in your own body's destructive cycle. But it gets worse. JR reported that once hospital staff realized the issue was about weed, they would start to treat you like you are dumb or crazy. This stigma led him to delay seeking help, letting his condition deteriorate. When he did get some treatments, pain meds, anxiety meds, something for nausea, the doses were so small that relief lasted only a couple of hours. JR mentioned receiving haloperidol, but noted it doesn't work for everyone. This variability in treatment response might actually reflect those genetic variants we discussed earlier. JR's diagnostic journey took almost 10 years. He began using marijuana in high school at age 15 or 16 and was initially misdiagnosed with a cyclic vomiting syndrome before finally receiving the correct CHS diagnosis a decade later. 10 years of suffering without answers. He quit multiple times but kept relapsing, finding that symptoms returned harder than it did before. While episodes usually resolved in a couple of days to a week, JR often stayed hospitalized for a good week because he's diabetic and would develop diabetic ketoacidosis, a life-threatening complication. Here's the crucial observation for JER. Smoking weed was worse and more triggering than edibles. His last emergency room visit following ingestion of a gummy was only an afternoon ordeal compared to week-long hospitalization after smoking. This suggests that route of administration and perhaps the rapid THC spike from smoking might influence CHS severity. Before we wrap up, I want to touch on an important distinction that Dr. Rosman's team highlighted: the difference between cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome and cannabis withdrawal syndrome, or CWS. These are two distinct conditions, and recognizing the difference is crucial for proper treatments. Onset timing is the first major difference. CHS symptoms begin within 24 hours of last cannabis use. Cannabis withdrawal syndrome, on the other hand, starts more than 24 hours after cessation, with peak incidence on days 2 and 6, lasting up to 4 weeks. Abdominal pain and vomiting, present in 85% of CHS cases, but only 8.3% of CWS cases. In fact, those symptoms aren't even part of the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for cannabis withdrawal. And the telltale sign of compulsive hot showers, present in 92% of CHS patients and 0% of cannabis withdrawal patients. If someone's taking scalding hot showers for relief, you are looking at CHS, not withdrawal. Interestingly, for cannabis withdrawal syndrome, there's a clear dose-response relationship. Smoking 6 or more marijuana joints per day over 12 months tripled the odds of developing withdrawal symptoms. CHS, however, shows no such clear correlation between quantity and symptom severity. It's more about duration and the individual genetic susceptibility. For treating cannabis withdrawal syndrome, the evidence supports oral THC at 30 mg 3 times a day or 90 mg 3 times a day, which reduces symptoms in a dose-responsive manner. Dronabinol at 20 mg twice daily for 8 weeks resulted in significantly higher treatment retention and lower withdrawal symptoms compared to placebo. And gabapentin at 1200 mg per day significantly decreased both cannabis use and withdrawal symptoms. Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. The numbers tells a concerning story. Cannabis-related consultations in U.S. Emergency Department increased from 2.3 to 13.3 cases per 100,000 ED visits from 2006 to 2013, according to Dr. Rosman's review. That's nearly a 6-fold increase in just 7 years. And remember, ED visits for CHS specifically doubled from 2017 to 2021. We are in the midst of a cannabis boom, with legalization expanding, potency increasing, and 2.75 million Americans already affected yearly. We are facing a growing public health challenge that many healthcare providers still don't recognize. The stigma JR experienced, being treated like he was dumb or crazy, reflects a broader problem. Many emergency department clinicians still fail to diagnose CHS, according to Stubbs and McCollum's 2024 review. This diagnostic gap means delayed treatments, prolonged suffering, and missed opportunity for intervention. So what have we learned today? Cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome is real. It's growing and it's devastating for those affected. The groundbreaking 2022 genomic research by Dr. Russo and his team has given us 5 genetic variants that dramatically increased CHS risk. with odd ratio ranging from 5.8 to 12. This finding might eventually enable genetic screening to identify at-risk individuals before they develop the syndrome. The clinical research is equally important. We now have evidence-based acute treatments. Haloperidol and droperidol outperforms traditional antiemetics. Topical capsaicin provides targeted relief, and benzodiazepines should be first line for symptom management. Long-term, tricyclic antidepressant like amitriptyline show real promise, with 70% of CHS patients reporting improvement. But the ultimate treatment remains cannabis cessation, of course, and that's where we face our biggest challenge. Nearly 80% of patients who achieve relief eventually relapse, and 71% who quit relapse within 6 months. JR's story reminds us that behind every statistics is a human being suffering, facing not just physical agony but stigma, delayed diagnosis, and the psychological torment of a cycle they can't control. As cannabis use continues to rise and the industry approached the $25 billion mark, we need greater awareness among healthcare providers, patients, and the public. We need to eliminate the stigma that prevent people like JR from seeking timely help. And we need more research, larger genomic studies, better treatments, and effective interventions to prevent relapse. The science is clear. For some people, cannabis isn't the harmless herb it is often portrayed to be. Their genetics makes them vulnerable to a condition that can destroy their quality of life and even threaten their survival. Thank you so much for joining me today on CannaInsights. I hope this deep dive into cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome has been enlightening and perhaps even eye-opening. If you or someone you know is experiencing symptoms of CHS, recurrent vomiting, abdominal pain, and the telltale relief from hot showers, please seek medical attention and be honest about cannabis use. Early diagnosis can prevent years of suffering. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone who might benefit from this information. Science only helps where it is shared. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and take care of your health.